Ladies and gentlemen, happy new week, happy Monday. My name is Clark Sell, and we are back for another edition of Ask That. And today is going to be a fruitful it's going to be a fruitful episode. With me today, I have the gentleman known as Lemon, the only lemon that there is.
I assume so. I mean, there's the Don Lemon.
Nah,
There's
whatever.
the lemon heads. Okay.
The lemon. We're gonna say it's the only one.
All right. Fair enough.
We're gonna have a great conversation today about scope, which is everybody's favorite, whether it's scope creep or scopes if you're in JavaScript. But before we get there, why don't you give a quick introduction?
So I live in Minneapolis. I'm the lead developer for an agency downtown, and do a podcast and a lot of little sites. So, I mean, basically, like, in general, like, I go to work, I make websites, and I come home and I make different websites. Because I do find it that fun. I really do.
So let's talk about the at-home stuff, because I'm sure that's probably the most fun since you're spending your time there. What are we talking about? Big, small?
No, fairly small. I don't know if you've ever played anything with Pug. It's like a HTML, it's just basically it's like a Haml and the rest of them, but you can just sort of like write HTML really fast.
Okay.
And so essentially if you can like my work process for those kind of things has been like between Pug and Sass and Vue, like it gets so like fast that I can just sort of like crank out these things. So like one of the things that I made at one point that I still really like, and I made it like this week, I made it a proper PWA where it like downloads the assets.
Oh, nice, yeah.
But it's a party. And all it is a button that helps you party. And if you end up going to the site, party, you basically hit a button. Every time you hit the button, it says party. And then it starts to count and build up a little party meter. And if you get your party meter to full, it starts playing the Venga Boys boom, 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 boom.
Okay.
Like in the background.
Sure.
And so that's that was just fun. And I've seen it like broken out at tech conferences. Like there's that thing where the equipment goes down and stuff gets weird, and then all of a sudden like there's that uncomfortable deathly silence, and I've genuinely heard at one point like party. So that's one. I made another one called sort of the same principle called 21.limited, which it asks if it's the are you ready for this?
Yeah.
And every time it asks you if you're ready for this, and every time you hit yes, it plays that song and a like clip of somebody dancing for like a second.
So how much traffic do you get on some of these sites?
It sort of depends. Well, it totally depends. Some of them are really poorly trafficked. Like 2Unlimited gets very little. The first one that I had that was a runaway success was I did one called Damn Dog.
Okay.
And that one basically, if you're familiar with, you ever gone to WikiHow?
No.
So there's a site called WikiHow, which is like a guide on how to do everything, including like how to put on a hat. So it's a very silly site. I mean, but it's earnest. It wants to be helpful. But they have all of these guides, and they also have these sort of like incomprehensible drawings that are sort of drawn in the style of like a flight safety manual.
Okay.
Right. And so I've just since I started doing that, I found that site wonderful, and I find those drawings fascinating. And so I built a site where it basically would choose from a cultivated list of WikiHow drawings, and then would ask you which WikiHow article this is for.
Okay.
Also from a cultivated list. And so that was like fun, and it was enjoyable, and people started to like it. And then Tumblr got a hold of it, and then the YouTubers got a hold of it, and then PewDiePie got a hold of it. And man, if
Okay.
you're ever looking at your site traffic, like the moment that PewDiePie discovers you,
Sure. Yeah.
just like I was just like at work and I'm in like Google Analytics, like, oh, I wonder what is that?
so, so what kind of numbers are we talking?
Oh, boy, I could give that to you. I don't have that right off the
I
bat,
mean,
but
I
it was
assume millions.
yeah. I mean, it was. I think it was probably 1.2 in a day, and it's weird
Wow.
because like I had to trace it back because there was no direct link,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So immediately when I saw the spike, it wasn't like, oh, all this stuff is coming from
Right.
like
Right.
this
Right.
subreddit or
Right.
whatever. It was just coming from, mm. And
Right.
so, but like, he did the video and mentioned the name of the site, and that was
Sure.
sufficient for people to
Sure.
do that, and
That's
then their own YouTube videos.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And this has kind of led to this you and I going back and forth about scope a bit. I mean, how much time? I mean, this sounds like very little time was invested in that, and yet here it's
Mm-hmm.
become a bit of an internet. I don't, not meme is the right word, but staple, if
Something, I
you
mean,
will.
yeah, sure, something, yeah.
Yeah. So like, compare that. I mean, I guess in that case, right? Success was only like number of users, and really
Sure.
success was, hey, did I have fun doing it?
Yeah.
I had joy, put it out there. How? I mean, I guess given all the ones that you've done,
Hmm.
what do you think makes some of them more successful than others?
Boy, I think that there's something. I mean, because you've been doing this for a
Yeah,
while, you've been doing this for a long time, and one of the things about having this job is every once in a while you get approached by people that, um, that the concept of like, what sort of like magic it goes to into making a website is beyond them.
sure.
But they have this idea, and then they like buy a domain, and they like, are like,
Yep.
well, I bought this domain, so how about a 50-50 partnership?
Yep. Yeah, totally. But you do all the work.
Yeah, exactly. But I bring my idea to the table.
Right.
And I I've always found it very surprising to try to dissect those kinds of things because, like, I mean, even like a success story like a success story like Tinder, for example,
Yeah.
is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like the only way that something like Tinder works is if it has massive scale.
Right. Yep.
You
Yeah,
know,
totally.
like if
Yeah,
it
it
did
doesn't
not
work
have
at two.
right, right.
Yeah.
So, if you launch this thing, if you do like a soft launch with like, 1,000 people
Yeah.
internationally, that's a failure.
Yeah, I
So,
never even thought about that, to be honest. I mean, yeah. How do
yes.
you even get critical mass out the gate? It never even crossed my mind.
Yeah, so I think that there's some people that are I think there's that other equation of doing that thing. And that's the thing that I've always been pretty bad at, and definitely like have had the
Sure,
thing where
sure,
like I've
sure.
I've like made the site and then I've like, well, that's the fun part.
Yeah,
Bye.
yeah,
And then, it just sort of languishes there. So I don't know exactly what's involved in some of this sort of like making it seem cool or making it
yeah,
seem just present,
yeah, yeah. How many of your little sites do you have?
Oh, I would say about a dozen at this point.
Okay, and
Um,
and how
yeah.
how are you paying for them?
Well, I like silly domains, and
Yeah,
I like silly domains that I can buy for cheap.
sure.
Um, so, I just sort of like get like 88-cent domains and stuff like that. Although then you have to renew them. But anyway,
Yeah,
um, and my sort of masterstroke of this was that all of these things are HTML. Like
sure. Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no back
Static
end to
sites.
this.
Yep.
Yeah, so at that point, I can roll the entire thing up to GitHub, and like I'm set. So like that thing I was talking about with PewDiePie, like that could have been a disaster,
Right. Yeah,
because all of a
totally.
sget like you just got this massive spike in traffic that could crush you. But it's like, well, I don't really care about the traffic. Like it'll, if GitHub servers can handle it, I'm fine, and I'm pretty sure they can.
Yeah. I mean, you hope. There's always there's that like questionable line of like, should some of this stuff be GitHub pages or not? I know. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, they don't seem to have like a working policy, and I definitely wouldn't do something like, grotesque on
Sure.
pages. But like,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's
but a few million hits a day, like, I mean, I guess if your Facebook's, React and all that, they got to be getting that kind of traffic pretty too.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like so much of those like bigger,
Yeah.
bigger sort of Git projects, and then just general
Yeah.
traffic to GitHub. I mean, I'm pulling down,
Yeah. Yeah.
pushing and pulling all sorts of
Sure.
traffic to GitHub every day. So.
Sure. Sure. You mentioned you were doing them in Vue. Does that mean you played with React then quite a bit too?
I didn't actually get much success out of React. I did some Angular, which I finally got there, but I kind of felt, just personally for me, like I felt dumb when I was doing it. Like
Yeah.
I got there, but it definitely like it was laborious
Sure.
getting there.
Yeah.
And then the thing that made me sort of like into Vue was that it was like, well, yeah, like I get this, like I get
Yeah.
this out of the gate.
Sure.
So yeah, so I did some Angular and some Ember with kind of like limited success, and then once I kind of like for real, I do not remember who. Do not remember who posted it at the moment, but there was an article called "How to Learn Vue If You're Just Used to jQuery," which was like super helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
And we kind of
and
just left that in the past.
no, for sure, but like yeah, like that's kind of the thing was like that front end model of just like well here's the 90 variables I want to think about, like just great.
Sure. Sure. What? Why? You've got a lot of these. When do you? I mean, when do you decide to do one?
So what usually happens is I am, for whatever reason, like looking at domains, and
Yeah.
then I just end up with a domain, and then I kind of let it sit around for a minute until usually it'll basically just be like drinking with people, and then somebody pitches it out. Like one of the sites that came out a while ago is I did one called Bad Accent Club, where you basically it's a multiplayer game where you're given a quote and then an accent,
Hmm.
and then the other person has to guess what accent you were trying. And that was one where that was the drunkest I had been in a while, and we kind of just like kicked around this idea, and then I went back to that same friend about a week and a half later, like, well, I made this.
Yeah. That's pretty quick.
So yeah, I don't know. I think that like that sometimes like there's because those bigger sites are obviously like a lot more complicated and interesting in different ways, and figuring out that kind of thing. But like it's also really fun to just kind of like, well, what's my actual idea, and then let me get my idea out, and
Sure.
then live with it.
Have you made any revenue, or can you put any kind of like tangible, this has helped the lemon out because I've done these, 15, 20 crazy things on the side?
No and yes. I did talk to a friend of mine about sort of a sponsorship.
Sure.
He's got a company that does JavaScript error reporting. It's a cool
Oh,
company,
yeah, yeah.
and it's
Todd. We're
sort
talking
of
about Todd.
yeah. I'm talking about
Yeah.
Todd. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so we were talking about Todd Garner runs Trek.js, and we were
Yep.
talking about wanting to like work in sort of a sponsorship where the site itself would create a JavaScript error like intentionally,
Oh, there
and
you
then
go.
it would sort of like give you a visual indication of what that was.
Sure.
And I played with all these prototypes, and like all of them were just sort of like, they always felt like weird distractions, and I definitely never wanted to do something where it was just like a banner ad, because I don't think that's
Yeah, yeah.
right
Yep.
for the sites. I don't think that's right for his company. So like,
Yep.
unfortunately, that kind of thing is stalled out just because like I can't at the moment, I can't think of a
Sure.
way to properly have that thing make sense together.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that there has been like some benefit as far as like profile, as for, like just people knowing things, which is cool, and my own like professional portfolio is kind of lousy, so like a thing that's just like a bunch of silly sites is a lot more fun to show people.
Sure. Sure. What's been the hardest thing about all of it?
I think the hardest thing about all of that has been like um, when those sites get done, figuring out the right level of babysitting. There's a bunch of examples of figuring out, because like I think the PWA thing is really super fun and interesting, and as a person that likes web development so much more than app development, I think it's
Yeah.
just so much
Yeah.
interesting to me. The idea of a PWA is something you can actually just like install onto your phone is like super cool. But there's a lot of hinkiness with it, and a lot of kind of like weird manifest stuff that you have to write, and so sometimes figuring out like, is this worth it? Like is this improving somebody's user experience, and am I learning something? Because like the other thing is I want to be able to make one of these dumb sites and be like, oh, you know what? I figured out a thing that I can
Sure.
do, like
Yeah.
with view methods or whatever.
Yeah. What got you to play around with the PWAs? Because that's pretty like old new. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Oh boy, which one was it? I think that. Oh, you know what it was. You know what it was at my real job. Uh, we basically got confronted with, hey, this site that already exists, we want it to be an app.
Sure.
And I was like, oh boy, I really don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
want to, write something from the ground up and make it an app just
Yeah.
because it lives on your home screen. And I had read some stuff about that thing, because obviously, you can bookmark it, but
Yep.
then you can kind of like bookmark in a way that's like a little bit more interesting. And then when I figured that thing out, then it was like, well, that's kind of cool, because then you can have, Chromeless is really nice,
Yeah.
to not
Yeah.
have that browser screen in there and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess that was it, of just like basically just not wanting to make an app, and like
Sure.
how can I avoid that?
I mean, do you think that it's going to live up to the hype? I mean, I know we're waiting for iOS support to come around on Safari.
Yeah, I think, oh boy, one of the things that's I'm suspicious about is that um, iOS support will make a huge difference in my mind. I think that it'll
Yeah.
make a huge difference, and will change things, um, which will be interesting and cool. But then there's this problem of its biggest proponent has been Google, and they've kind of abused the model a little bit, because it's like,
Interesting.
I mean, because it's like they have vested interest in not that too,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So they have vested interest in Android kind of over PWA,
Yeah.
and they started to do this thing where like where it was Oreo. They did this release where you could basically make a PWA and then install it on your phone, pretty easy. And then they released a new version of Android, and they were like, well, now your icon's going to be lame, and it's going to have this like Chrome
Yeah.
icon, and it's like, what? Oh God! And then I had to like read, okay, well, you can get around that if you do this thing,
Sure.
and so I think that, I don't know, like if both Android and iOS are doing it, then there's a lot more ability for them to be in lockstep, because I think that there's always going to be a temptation of Android to abuse it, because
Yeah.
they probably would prefer you went to the Play Store.
Yeah, I've actually been curious about the financial ramifications of things. I mean, the one thing that sits around the store is a pretty clear, defined monetary model, revenue model, and
Hmm.
so this goes around the store. Not a bad thing.
Yeah,
But then again, that also changes people's motives of whether or not how fast they should support it. Should they support it?
sure.
There's potentially millions and millions of dollars on the line for an Apple, a Google, I don't know.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, like there's such a, I would, but I would say that like there's such a great space for apps. I mean, there's like you couldn't have like the Lyft app on in a PW. Like, well, no, you could. Never mind. I guess that like there's like a good space for apps to live, and then there's the reality of the situation, which is there's a bunch of people that are just like, well, we want our icon to be on
Yeah.
a home screen.
Yeah.
Like we want push notifications. What do you
Yeah.
want push notification for?
Yeah.
We want push notifications.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, maybe there's value in separating those concerns out of making like the idea of app maybe a little bit less of a lustworthy
Sure.
goal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't by any stretch think that we have this world figured out, and an app is the kind of the best model. And now we're seeing the multiple devices, even on the Apple side of things, between the TV and the whatever crap they're cooking up for the MacBook and
Sure.
iPad and whatever watch. Like,
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
to be a full time, Apple guy just to figure out what the hell to do to ship it across their 2-inch to 200-inch screens. So,
Yeah, and you just and like as the platform, like you just get to like just write a spec and be like, deal with it.
right,
Like,
right,
here you
right,
go.
right,
Oh, it's got a big notch in it now. Deal with it.
right. Whoops. upper 2%. Just cut that upper 2% out. Yeah, yeah, for sure. What else you got cooking? You got a podcast going. What do you
I
riff on a
do.
podcast about?
What's that? Well,
What,
we've actually the podcast has been going on for a lot of years. It is I'll say just on front, it is not work safe. It is it's a podcast where we essentially read crazy people. We read the writing of crazy people in a bunch of different categories. It's always been fun, and it's always been something that. Like we're doing on April 7th for reasons that are problematic. For reasons we shouldn't, but we are doing our second 24-hour marathon,
wow.
which is, a straight 24 hours of reading terrible things off the internet and raising money for the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Nice.
Which, it was exhausting last year, and I have no reason to think that it won't be exhausting this year too.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's a big endeavor.
It really is. I've never done anything like that. And if you think about like, well, whatever, you sit in a chair and you talk for like ever,
Sure,
like that's not
sure.
really a big deal. And it kind of, I don't know, like until you realize like that concept of your body just giving up,
Yep.
it's kind of, yeah. I mean, I'm not comparing myself to like people that do real things because that's way better. but like I do understand that sort of that exhaustion.
How much prep have you put into figuring out what the 24 hours is going to look like?
A fair amount. We did as a proper, appropriately professional product launch. We said, okay, here we go, and we clicked the go button and we crashed the servers immediately. So the first hour of the last 24 terrible hours were with just us trying to fix the
Sure,
fix
sure,
the stream.
sure.
So we did a lot of stuff in making sure that UI works, so that we've got like for example, we'll have a live artist the entire time, so somebody that's drawing, and then we've got like all these like little kind of side ideas, which I think will be fun. And so we've spent a lot of time working on those things that hopefully will turn out good. I mean, hopefully we'll raise some money and hopefully I'll survive it.
What's the tech look like that you got involved to pull that off?
Oh, the tech is actually there's a huge successful group called the Speed Gamers. Or wait, no, Games Done Quick,
Okay.
which is different. And they do these like large scale video game charity marathons.
Okay.
So like hotels and stuff like that. And they raise a significant amount of money for charity changes, but they raise a significant amount of money. And they built an interface so that they can basically have a back end and a front end, and then it can basically inform what would turn out to be a Twitch stream, right? It's the end goal is like a screen that goes out over Twitch. So they built this interface with, it's mostly Polymer and Node. So it's a Node backend, and then it's a lot of Polymer to like inform this kind of thing. And it's this entire ecosystem that they open source, which is great. And I mean, thank you. I'll have to thank them personally. But they did open source it and, didn't do the other thing. So like there's no documentation at all. And so you just kind of go like, well, okay. I'm guessing this probably does this. Let's figure that out. So that's been kind of that's been kind of fun. Just like you're forced into this like new tech. I don't think I understand how Polymer works still. I feel like it's very. I mean, there's all the Shadow DOM stuff, and you're like, okay, so it's interesting.
Anytime you use the word shadow, there's all kinds of other issues.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the reason why they use such a scary word.
That's right. You're not exactly sure what it is. Consoles and debuggers may tell you, but, shadow government, shadow ops.
Scary things for sure.
Yes.
But, everyone wants to sign up because HTML is weird.
Yeah, there you go. Well, listen, before my last question, at the end of every one of these, I like to extend a bit of gratitude and thanks. And I just want to thank you for not just being here today, but for sharing what you share and being out there in a community and everything that goes along with it. It's a lot of work, and wish you continued success. So on behalf of myself and everybody out there, thank you.
Well, back at you. I mean, thank you. I appreciate this, and I appreciate the conference. It's cool.
Thanks. So my last question is, what's your next thing? Like, what do you find? I mean, we mentioned PWAs a little bit, but what are you looking forward to diving into? It's crazy tech time. What is Lemon go figure out to do next?
I don't. I have I was saying, the Vue thing was really fun for me, and it totally is. I'm really into it. But I haven't done that thing with Vue all the way down, like from top to bottom.
Sure.
And I've seen some talks from Sarah Drasner and just there's so much cool stuff in there that I really want to try doing that thing, to have just JavaScript all the way up into this Vue architecture system. There's a thing I went to. There was a guy that made this thing called Code Sandbox that was just I saw a demo. I was just amazed.
Yeah.
That it was a CodePen thing. It was that thing, except for you're standing up a server the entire time. And it's just so cool to see. And so so I think that's one of the things tech-wise that I definitely want to play around in is to be able to look into routing and that sort of stuff and see what the bottom level is.
Taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
Well, with that, where can people find you? Where can they find some of your microsites? Is that a good way to say it?
Sure. That's fine.
Where can they find more about Lemon?
So Ahoy Lemon, AHOYLEMON. Ahoylemon.xyz is just sort of just basically links to everything. But then that's Ahoy Lemon would also be GitHub, Twitter, CodePen, Medium.
Whatever's relevant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's cool.
And play around, and I don't know. Hopefully there's one in there that people find fun.
Yeah, totally. Well, with that being said, thank you everybody for your time today. I would love to know what crazy tech, or what's got you fired up. Lemon would love to know what site you like. Drop a link below. Give us a thumbs up. With that, sir, thank you for today, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great week.